Hello, I'm Reggie York. This is a presentation on what you know about some of the basic lessons of science. This is very basic, and what we'll be doing is it'll help you to test your very basic understanding of science. This is not designed to be a comprehensive review of science. Only we're going to be giving 7 situations and ask if there's a major problem with this, just to give you a touch of some of the issues and concepts that are relevant to understanding and appreciating science. We will discuss each situation. They're taken from a book by me. The examples, again, are not comprehensive. For each situation, you will be asked to pause this presentation as it's on your screen so that you can read the situation deliberately and be prepared to answer the question, is there a significant problem illustrated by this situation? Your answer is either yes or no. This does not ask you if you can find a way to improve the situation, but only if you find a significant problem illustrated. Here is the first situation. If you will hit the pause button and read it, and then unpause it, and we'll talk about it. First, the question, of course, here is, did you find a major problem? Here we have a situation where the researcher found that a group of people treated for depression improved. The study used the sound methods of science. So the researcher concluded that this service is likely to be effective for people similar to this particular group. The key issue here is generalization. When you collect data, you want to know if you would likely find the same data if you use a different group of people. Is this relevant to that group or the other group, and so forth? If you use a similar group to your studied group, you can be more likely to be correct than if you used a group very different from that one. In regard to the question of appreciation of science, as a way of knowing, the data was collected in an unbiased way, so it seems to be okay in that regard. The next point, a systematic way of collecting and analyzing data, is one other way to look at this scenario to see if it seems to have a problem. Data was collected systematically on depression, both before and after service. The next one is conclusions that are reasonably connected with the data results. The generalization here seems sound. However, if you mention that this was not okay because the study did not report having a random sample of people, you should give yourself credit because you're a little bit beyond where I am in this particular lesson. And this would be a reasonable criticism of the study. However, in general, I find this situation to be okay, basically. So give yourself 1 point if you agree with me on that. Here is the second situation. If you will just hit the pause button and read this and then come back. Did you find a major problem with this situation? You see that a given person reviewed the evidence about whether the full moon affects behavior and found that the evidence suggests that it does not. However, this person concluded that the full moon does affect behavior because this person has seen even though this person has seen the evidence of this phenomenon, this person failed to appreciate the scientific way as a method of finding out what you need to know. Because the person ignored the evidence. This is not an appreciation of science. Also, all of these other conclusions seem to be appropriate as well because the person basically ignored the evidence and simply went with that person's own specific experience. So I conclude that this situation illustrates a problem. So give yourself a point if you drew the same conclusion. Here is the third situation, if you will hit the pause button and come back. Did you find a major problem? here are again the things we are looking at potentially. I'm just going to talk about a major issue, two major issues really. In this situation, the data showed that the people improved, but the data failed to be statistically significant. Chance is an important issue in systematic scientific research. You should not conclude you have found the answer to your question unless you have statistical significance. Or in this particular case, you should not conclude that the treated group really got better because the data here was not statistically significant. So I would say this situation had a problem. If you agree, give yourself a point. Here is the fourth situation. Read that over, and then we'll talk about it. Did you find a major problem? I'm going to throw all these things up there. Here, data on salaries for men and women in the researcher's neighborhood were generalized to all people in the nation. This is a problem with what we call generalization. Concluding that data from one's neighborhood can be used to represent a fact in the entire nation is going much too far in regard to generalization. Generalization is when you are saying your data, your results are relevant to a bigger group of people. So I conclude that this situation has a problem. If you agree, give yourself a point. Here is the fifth situation. Hit the pause button, read it, and then come back. Did you find a major problem? Here the researcher measured stress and health and found a relationship between these variables that was statistically significant, and concluded there was a relationship between stress and health. This is a study where I believe data were collected systematically, and the conclusion was consistent with the data, both in regard to whether a relationship was found between stress and health, but it was also statistically significant. So I think this situation was okay. If you agree, give yourself a point. Here is the sixth situation. Hit the pause button, read it, and then come back. Did you find a major problem? Here a researcher has decided to conduct a study using telephone interviews, but has not yet decided on a topic for the study. Someone suggests a study of victims of rape and support groups. Did the support group work? The problem here, in my opinion, is that research is a systematic process that starts with a research question, not a research methodology. In other words, you might say this person has put the cart before the horse. One could criticize the use of telephone interviews as a method to answer the question that was composed after the methodology was determined. Or that is, yes, before the methodology was determined. This is one of the reasons we should not put the cart before the horse. So I believe this has a problem. If you agree, give yourself a point. Here is the seventh situation. Read it over and then we'll talk about it. Did you find a major problem? Here is a counselor who has used a treatment model that has been somewhat successful, but upon learning the evidence on this model, that the evidence on this model was substantially negative, decided there was insufficient evidence to continue using the method. I would say this shows a major appreciation of science as a way of knowing, and this discovery was based on a systematic examination of scientific evidence. So I'd say this one is okay. If you agree, give yourself 1 point. So what have we discovered? Do you appreciate science as a way of knowing? Do you appreciate how a science systematic method of inquiry will give you the best opportunity? Do you appreciate how scientific evidence can be the best means for drawing conclusions? Or I will say that it's at least a good method of drawing conclusions. On the specific level, we examine in this presentation just a sample of concepts. One was generalization, the idea that you can generalize your findings to other groups of people, the more similar they are to your study group. But also important, very important in this, is how you selected the sample. If you have a random sample from that population to whom you wish to generalize, you're in a much better position. If you appreciate science, you will give priority to a set of systematically analyzed data over your own personal experience with life. Another point is some things happen just by chance, so we should appreciate the value of statistical analysis of data and not draw conclusions based on data that was not statistically significant. Also, in systematic research, you should not put the cart before the horse. You first decide on your research question, then you determine the research methods you would use to find the answer to that question. This is the end of the presentation. I hope this is helpful to you.